Welcome to Homestand Sports, the podcast for the passionate fan. I'm your host, Albert Vartanian, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Justin Pooney, who
will tell us why LeBron James was 3 points away from giving us generational receipts.
Wow. Well, on today's show, is William Nylander officially an NHL superstar? Should anybody take the Maple Leafs seriously until they improve their blue line? How worried should the Oilers be about McDavid and Draisaitl? And yes, Justin Pooney will explain why LeBron James was 3 points away from printing generational receipts. I don't know, but we'll find out. Lots to get to and lots to answer, so let's get this party started. I'm Albert Vartanian, and this is Homestand Sports, where stories, not stats, take center stage. All right, Justin, so the Maple Leafs wrapped up their big trip in Sweden, the Global Series, with 2 big wins. But the notable storyline coming out of that is William Nylander. What was your biggest takeaway from the Toronto-Sweden trip?
Exactly that. William Nylander. I think he just looked so comfortable. He looked like it was kind of like it was his weekend. You know, when you go to the NHL or the NBA All-Star weekend and whatever, and there's a host. The All-Star from that respective city is the host. It looked like William Nylander was the host of this weekend in Stockholm. It looked like he was at home. He was smiling the whole time. His on-ice performance was as on par what he's done all season, been excellent. I think William Nylander has kind of set himself up as the Robin to Austin Matthews Batman for the Toronto Maple Leafs. I think he has passed Mitch Marner as the second most important player on the Toronto Maple Leafs. I think we talked about it last week about is it time to think about moving Nylander. I think the performance he's put on this season so far and how he's played, I think it's made it clear as day that it's time for him to leapfrog Mitch Marner, and Brad Treliving to really consider moving Mitch Marner.
Really?
Yeah.
I was not expecting that from you today. I really wasn't. I mean, we're 17 games in, but I'll give you my takeaway as well. And no. I have 2 of them, but let's start with William Nylander. 12 goals, 15 assists, 27 points, 17-game point streak at the moment, which ties an active player and Connor McDavid, who did it in 21-22, who I think ended that season with about 123 points. So that's the type of season Nylander is on pace for. Will he get there? Who knows? Just 17 games in. But I will say this, some players really, they feel the pressure of a contract year, and they can let it affect their game in a negative way. But for Nylander, that's just not the case, at least not yet. And I think I can say this, and I feel pretty confident saying that he's playing at a level right now only a few players in the league can get to. And that's McDavid, I think Draisaitl, Matthews, McKinnon. Maybe you can throw Crosby in there, Pasternak to a certain extent, but I would say only a handful of players can really play at that level. Pedersen we'll get to. I'm sure we will. But what I mean by that is every single shift, he has an expectation now to do something, and he usually delivers. And now you have a player who has a fear factor about him, where teams are going to game plan against him. That's what Nylander is doing right now. He has so much confidence. 5 power play goals. Last season, he had 9. He's got 5 already playing with Matthews, and he's tied for Matthews. He's making the most of his power play time. Let's not forget, I mean, near the end of last season, and I believe in the playoffs, he was on the second power play unit. Now he's on the top unit, and he's making the most of those minutes. Got the fear factor about him on the penalty kill with Austin Matthews. He can do it on both sides of the game, and that's why Keefe has him in that situation. And he's become a game changer, game breaker, game winner, all wrapped into one. And when you have a player like that, it makes it difficult for a team like the Maple Leafs who are at the cap limit. Obviously, the cap is going to go up, but you have to make a decision on, are we going to keep this player who's really performing at the top of the peak of his game, just 17 games in? Are we going to give him the amount of money he deserves, or are we going to move on from him? So he's putting the Leafs in a difficult position, but putting himself in a great position, because right now he is absolutely the talk of the NHL. And I think he needs to be taken seriously, but there's a huge but, Justin. You have to beware of the contract year. I'll go back to Jonathan Huberdeau, and maybe this is not the best of examples, but listen, he signs that deal, makes 10.5, and now it's the 2023 season. In November, Huberdeau is being benched by the Calgary Flames for an entire period. That's what can happen. I'm not saying that's what will happen with Huberdeau, but dude, he was coming off on a 115-point season. And now he's nowhere near that player. And I think that's the concern, I think, across the league with every general manager. When you have a player to the caliber of Nylander or Huberdeau who put up big points in a contract year, when you pay them, in the back of your mind, you're thinking, well, did we make the wrong decision? But you can't, there's nothing you can look at that's going to tell you made the right decision or not until you see the player play after the contract. But biggest takeaway is William Nylander is clearly, a superstar for the Toronto Maple Leafs, but a superstar in this league.
I absolutely agree with you about not about the Huberdeau thing, about Nylander kind of elevating his game and be wary of the contract situation. With the Huberdeau situation, I think Calgary was painted into a difficult situation where they lost Johnny Gaudreau, who at the 11th hour decided, I'm going to go to free agency, and then left. Matthew Tkachuk requested a trade, so they overpaid for Huberdeau, right? I guess if they were a bit more confident in their situation, they could have let it play out and then sign him. They didn't want to. They offered him a big contract at that moment. He was also much older than William Nylander is, right? Not much older, but he's a little bit older.
Yeah.
If I'm William Nylander, right? And let's do a little exercise here, Albert. Do I go to July 1st or July 4th or whatever it is now, right? And do I just do like a NBA style thing or an NFL style thing and meet with a bunch of different teams? The Leafs are included in that, and weigh out my options, see what's out there. Do I do what Austin Matthews did and take a shorter term deal, a 4-year deal, for example, and then when the cap goes back up, then I'm back in the free agency market? Is that something that he considers doing? Is that rather than locking yourself into an 8-year full max deal, do you take a shorter term, but reach that AAV, whatever it's going to be, 11.25, 11.5, whatever he gets, right? That's what I'm really intrigued about, is how does William Nylander operate? Because this is a guy in the past, and Leaf fans know this very well, is fine with playing hardball in contract negotiations. Does he tell the Leafs, you know what? I'll meet with you guys. I'll keep the door open, but I also want to see what else is out there if you guys don't give me exactly what I want. That is something that's going to be very interesting, and how Brad Treliving has to maneuver around that is because if you let a guy like this hit free agency, hit the open market, then you're allowing other teams to get involved. He can see what else is out there, but also, it creates more, what's the word I'm looking for? Empowerment on William Nylander's side. So that is something to me is it's going to be very interesting moving forward.
Yeah, by all accounts, he wants to stay with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Right. That's what we hear. And it's just, there's a really good article on The Athletic that Pierre LeBrun wrote today.
Yep.
And he talked to a bunch of GMs about what they think Nylander's fair market value would be. And it's so interesting because you had a range of $9.5 million all the way up to $12 million.
Yeah.
Right. So that's Nylander's in a great position. How much do you pay this guy? He's 28 years old. How many more years does he have left at his peak? And I'm starting to lean towards a shorter term deal, similar to what Matthews got, but not the same amount. I don't think there's a world where he makes as much as Austin Matthews. And a lot of GMs, I think, compared the Sebastian Aho contract and the Pastrnak contract. I think he's in and around there, probably just below Pastrnak. Regardless of the situation, take the Maple Leafs out of it, just focus on the player. Nylander can get, I think, the amount of money that he expects to get, whether it's from the Leafs or any other team in the league. He's in that position at the moment.
Yeah, he is. And look, I think what's going to be very interesting is him and Elias Pettersson. Again, I bring the Canucks into, but you look at it, both these guys are having career years, huge starts to seasons, and both them, William Nylander is UFA, Pettersson still got another year on his deal, but both are in high leverage contract situations. Yeah. And from what we're hearing from Pettersson is he's willing to take a shorter term deal, a 4-year deal, where he can then opt out and get back into free agency. And I'm wondering if a player like William Nylander or players going forward understand that now, where, hey, if I take a shorter term deal and I'm going to be 30, 31, 32, and I can hop back in and get another big ticket deal, that might be something that might be the norm in the NHL that we see in the NBA, where guys take shorter term deals. It continues to have them to have all the leverage. It keeps those teams on their toes, and it maximizes their profitability because the cap is supposedly going to go up and up and up in the NHL.
My other takeaway was the Toronto Maple Leafs. Again, they need help on defense. It's getting bad. I mean, they're 7th in goals against. That's in and around like the Flames, the Sharks, the Blackhawks. The best teams in the league aren't high in that category. They keep the puck out of the net. And if you look at this Toronto Maple Leafs decor, right? You go Morgan Riley. he's been great. But after Riley, there's a serious drop-off. You go Brody and Giordano. Got two vets who are clearly past their prime, playing too many minutes because they have to make up for a lack of quality on that blue line. Then you have Jake McCabe. And I'll say I thought he looked pretty good against Minnesota. He was effective with his stick checking. He was physical in the corners. But he's average at best. Let's not forget, before the injury, he was horrible. People were calling him for to be benched and not even play with the Leafs anymore. But that's not going to happen. Liljegren, he's hurt, but he's not a top 4 guy. He's a guy who can fill in, I think, occasionally, but he's a bottom pairing guy. Then you got Klingberg, who's completely gone MIA. This injury seems to be a serious issue. It looks like he's heading towards LTIR and maybe done with the team. I don't know how long that's going to go on for, so you're going to be missing a defenseman there. But you can't have a $4+ million guy just sitting in the press box for the rest of the season. That's not going to happen. Then you got William Lagesson and Simon Benoit, better than expected. But let's be real. They're 6th, 7th, 8th defensemen at best. They're AHL guys. There's a reason why they haven't been playing in the league. And I just can't take this team seriously until they improve this blue line. There's absolutely no chance of the Toronto Maple Leafs winning anything with this blue line. And this whole regular season, once again, is going to be all for naught. William Nylander, okay, it's been fun. Matthews scoring hat tricks, great. Marner contributing. There's some good stories. Looks like Bertuzzi's turning it around. But after that, you get to the playoffs, and if you have a decor that's this, or let's say even marginally better, there's no chance.
You're absolutely right. Like, look, defense wins championships, right? You look, it's a cliche and all that, but it's true. Defense wins championships. I mean, when you look at the goaltending and the defense core of this Toronto Maple Leafs team, it's not a championship level squad from that perspective. Up front, the top 6 forwards are probably the best, or one of the best in the league, right? We know that. That's a time-old tale. But Albert, you are absolutely correct. We don't know what's going on with John Klingberg. He's walking around Sweden with an undisclosed injury. Nobody knows what's going on. Again, you don't have Timothy Liljegren. What are you going to do? You mentioned it. And every week we talk about this. You cannot keep trotting Mark Giordano out for 20+ minutes, 15+ minutes a game. TJ Brody is not that guy. Morgan Rielly is a very good NHL defenseman. He is not a Victor Hedman. He is not an Alex Pietrangelo. He is not one of those guys, right? As much as he's been a great soldier for the Leafs and all of that, he is not a lead guy on a championship caliber defense corps. He's not. But you're stuck with him. You have that big contract. What do you have to do as Brad Treliving to address that need? You have to, we just talked about it. You have to sell off assets up front. You have to sacrifice some offense to build a defense core, Albert. That is exactly how you win. You have to win from the middle of the ice up. Your center ice position has to be strong. Your defense core has to be strong. And your goaltending has to be strong. The latter half that the Leafs have, the goaltending and defense core, there are way too many question marks for them to be considered a championship contender. And like you mentioned, I think when you look at this Toronto Maple Leafs team and this current iteration of them, all the blame goes on the core 4, right? The Matthews, the Marner, the Nylander, the Tavares. If you want to include Riley, sure. But the consistent failure from the front offices, from one regime to the next, to not build a strong caliber NHL championship level defense core, and it bites them in the ass every single year. They chose to go with Samsonov, who's proven to not be a number 1 goalie this year. You are now relying on a guy in Joseph Woll, who is essentially a rookie, right? How many rookie goalies do we know lead a team to a Stanley Cup? It was what? Ken Dryden, and I think Matt Murray? And then we look what happened to Matt Murray, right? When you look at the Toronto Maple Leafs and you look at this construction of the roster, it is a failure every single year because they do not prioritize defense. You mentioned it. They're at the bottom half of the league in giving up goals, right? They're going to have, you cannot win shootouts. We're looking at the Edmonton Oilers right now, who cannot keep winning shootouts because their defense and goaltending is weak. The teams that win championships are the teams that are able to keep the puck out of their net in the playoffs when the going gets tough and are able to score timely goals. The Leafs are not built like that, Albert.
The Leafs are in a better position in terms of the Oilers because they can win those shootouts because their forwards are clicking and they're so good. And
Yeah.
we'll get to the Oilers forwards because I think there's massive concern, and I'll address that later. But I'm actually okay with the tandem in Samsonov and Wall. I know it's early, but if you put a better decor in front of that, I think it'll be a lot safer and a lot better. But listen, there's still a lot for Brad Treliving to do. The concerns, we'll be talking about this throughout the entire season until they're addressed. By all accounts, there's reports that by the end of this week, there could be a move made by Treliving, and some defensemen could be coming in for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And we'll discuss that on the show when it does happen, because I'm sure it will. Okay, coming up after the break, we're going to bring on Steven Psihogios of NorthStar Bets. We got a big Monday nighter tonight. Chiefs against Eagles. And Stevie P has got some big bets for us for tonight's Monday nighter. Stay tuned. All right, let's bring in our guest right now from NorthStar Bets, Steven Psihogios. Stevie P, thanks for joining us. We got a big Monday nighter tonight, maybe the biggest Monday nighter of the season. It has to be, right? It's the Chiefs laying 2.5 at home to the Philadelphia Eagles. Which way are you leaning so far?
I like Philly plus the points here. I just think Kansas City's offense hasn't really been pushed yet in a game. Even the week 1 loss to Detroit, the Lions only scored 21 points. Now, credit to that defense, because the Chiefs have been one of the best defensive teams all year. It's funny how the script is kind of flipped on the Chiefs, where they become such a strong defensive team while the offense is trying to figure stuff out. But I think Philly's got the weapons on offense in A.J. Brown, in Devonta Smith, in DeAndre Swift to push Kansas City somewhere where they haven't been comfortable playing this season. So I'll take the Eagles plus the points, and I like them as a money line play too at plus money odds.
Stevie, but aren't you worried about this Philly secondary? They ranked 28th against the pass, allowed 19 passing touchdowns. Last year, that secondary was probably the best in football, and then it got exposed in the Super Bowl, and it's been downhill ever since. I know the Chiefs don't have a great wide receiver core, but when you got a guy in Travis Kelce, you got a guy in Patrick Mahomes. Andy Reid is 31-6 after a bye. Don't you think that he would take advantage of that weak secondary the Eagles have?
I just don't think they can. I just don't think they have the receiving weapons to do that. I think the teams that we've seen do the best against the Eagles and that secondary are teams that have 2 or 3 guys that you can really rely on. Remember, the Vikings put up some pretty gaudy totals on that secondary, but they had Jefferson healthy. They had Addison, Hawkinson. Like, there was a lot of ways you could put that football or spread that football around. Washington, you don't think of them as a team with a lot of intriguing wide receiver weapons, but McLaurin's having another solid season. Jahan Dotson's been very good. They have Curtis Samuel, and Antonio Gibson's always dangerous out of the backfield too. I just don't think Kansas City has the depth of weapons to make up for that. I think if you take away Kelce, this offense, we've seen it look pretty lifeless most weeks.
All right, Stevie, let's talk some props. And we did that before the show started. Me and Justin told you how much we not that we hate first touchdown scores. We can't really predict them. I mean, we've hit 1 out of a million so far this season, but you're leaning towards some first touchdown props for this Monday nighter tonight.
Yeah, there's 4 guys in particular that I'm eyeing up. And the first is Jack Stoll, the tight end, who will probably take up the most of the work for the Eagles with Dallas Goedert out. His snap, he had a 44% snap share in the previous game that the Eagles played, so he filled in a lot when Goedert cleared. But there's a couple other guys further down the board as well. Grant Calcaterra, he had a concussion, so he left that game early, but it looks like he's going to play tonight. And Albert Akue-Bunam is someone who I'm looking at. These are guys that you're looking at upwards of like 50-1, 55-1 odds here at NorthStar Bets. Akue-Bunam's an interesting athlete. He's not a very good blocker, so I could see him actually taking a larger role in the receiving game, replacing Goddard that way, while other guys like Calcaterra and Stool do more of the blocking. And then one guy on the Chiefs I'm going to throw out there, he's at 25-1. That is Noah Gray. He just always seems to get involved. Like I said, the Chiefs don't have a lot of options outside of Travis Kelce, so the ball is going to get spread around when it goes to those second and third players. And I think Noah Gray, he can find and have a nose for the end zone tonight.
Stevie, A.J. Brown. Besides Tyreek Hill, probably the best wide receiver in football on an absolute tear this season. Him and Jalen Hurts have been defense's nightmares all season. We know this Chiefs defense is probably the best it's ever been in the Patrick Mahomes era. I think his line is set at 79.5 right now on NorthStar Bet. Would you lean the over or the under for A.J. Brown total yards tonight?
I'd go under. I think now with no Goddard, you can kind of focus a little more on these outside wide receivers, because even though I mentioned these guys as good first touchdown scorers, it's hard to none of them are Goddard. You're not going to replace him. So I think the Chiefs, who have been very good against the pass this year, I believe they're allowing the third fewest yards per attempt in the NFL this season. I think they can really limit the Eagles through the air. Philly's a run-first team. They're going to want to run the ball against this Kansas City team. They're 27th in opponent yards per rush attempt. So I think the key to success for the Eagles tonight will actually be running the football. So expect a big night from a guy like DeAndre Swift, who will also help replace Goddard in the sense that he runs a lot of his routes in the short to intermediate area of the field and over the middle. So I think Swift will have a big night tonight. I'm not really looking to bet on either of the wide receivers or Jalen Hurts to go over, for that matter.
Well, not only will I be hammering my boy Albert at NorthStar Bets for a first touchdown, I'm going to be sprinkling a little bit on a parlay that you put together over at NorthStar Bets. You have an article out right now looking at some NHL action, and you got a parlay. It's a 3-teamer, including your favorite, the Boston Bruins, who are just absolutely rolling right now, Stevie.
Yeah, and it's, as a Bruins fan, like as a fan of any team, you can admit that it's sometimes hard to look at your team objectively, but these are the facts coming into this game. Boston's got the best save percentage in the NHL. They're allowing the fewest goals per game, and right now they rank 10th in goals for per game. They're just one slot behind Tampa Bay, who ranks 9th. The Lightning, meanwhile, are 24th in team save percentage, and they're allowing the 6th most goals per game. So the edge has to go to the Bruins, even on the road. I still like Boston in that matchup. In that parlay piece, I also picked the Panthers to win tonight against the Oilers. Edmonton, Justin and I talked about this on Friday. I said, wait and see with the Oilers. I'm like, hold on the horses. Hold up the horses just yet. I'm not ready to say they're just back. They play a good offense, and what happens? They get lit up for 6 goals. The goaltending issues are still there. And you got a Florida team that's been playing pretty good between the pipes. They just got Ekblad and Montour back. So I like Florida as well. And then to get that parlay over plus 300, that's kind of the sweet spot I was looking for. I'm banking a couple of goals with the Coyotes against the Kings. They've covered as a plus 2.5 underdog in 10 of their last 11.
Boston 13-1-2. I don't know how they keep doing it, Stevie, but I know you're a happy man, and I thank you so much for jumping on today.
Yeah, no worries. I am a happy man, and I hope for more happiness moving forward, including tonight as they cash that parlay for me. Thanks for having me on, guys.
All right, Albert, is November 20th on a Monday morning, and Connor McDavid is 5th on the Edmonton Oilers in scoring, and Leon Draisaitl has just 6 goals on the season. My question is very simple. The Edmonton Oilers, the biggest dumpster fire in the NBA, the NHL, excuse me. How worried should you be?
If I'm the Oilers, I'm extremely concerned. I mean, especially because you need to play well above 500 hockey just to make the playoffs. When I say playoffs, I mean a wild card. Forget anything in the division because you're not catching the teams in your division. But I think there should be much more concern with McDavid than Draisaitl. I mean, Draisaitl has not played well. It almost looks like he's injured. He's a bit sulky. And I know he says he wears his emotions on his sleeve, but you can see it on the ice too. Yeah. But the guy, he's walked to 21 points while playing like garbage. Let's be real. You look at McDavid, 91st in scoring, 2 goals in 11 games, 5th, like you said, in scoring on his own team. That's not good. And this never happened to these two players. And Draisaitl himself even said it. He goes, this has never happened, that both of us have felt this way. It's a bad time. And he went on to say, you know, we're human beings and we care a lot. I'm working at finding my game as soon as possible, yada, yada, yada. And what all that tells me is that those quotes really worry me because it's saying that they don't know what's happening. At least Draisaitl doesn't. And they don't have an answer. Do I believe at some point this season they will break out of it and get back to what they have been the past 5-6 seasons, 2 of the best players in the NHL? Absolutely. But I'm worried that it takes too long. And if it takes too long for the Oilers, they're not going to make the playoffs. And yet again, this small window of opportunity to win a Stanley Cup with McDavid and Draisaitl is going to shrink if they don't find their scoring touch. This is a big concern. Look at the power play last year. Best power play ever. That's all anyone ever talked about when you heard about the Oilers, is how good that power play was. Now with the 22nd worst power play in the league right now, it's really fallen off. And, you know, they're average at best the way that they're playing.
Yeah.
And it's really McDavid that concerns me. He can't find his game. He's not scoring goals. I don't know if he's injured. He could be, but based on the way we see him play at times, he looks fine. It's just the puck's not going in the back of the net. But if I'm the Oilers, the concern is definitely there, and they need to find it, I think, before the new year rolls around.
I think we've never seen, since both these guys came into the league and have been with the Edmonton Oilers, we've never seen these guys struggle as much at the same time. That's what makes it so glaring. The fact that the two best players in hockey, and I still believe that these two guys are the best two players in hockey, struggling at the same time. And then the team is losing because they need them so much. It amplifies it to such a high degree. Leon Draisaitl, I do want to say this. He sulks. You see him, slashing guys in the back of the leg. It's not a mean streak. It's kind of like a hissy fit streak where he just throws a hissy fit and then he won't back check and he won't, get back in the play and he'll float around and stuff like that. That stuff right there is stuff that you need to cut out, because those are habits that guys on the rest of the team will see, because they say, oh, well, Leon can do it. Why can't I? I'm not going to back check. Forget it. I'm going to get my frustrations to get the best of me. It's a collective group from McDavid and Draisaitl that have to change that mentality for the Oilers and get out of this funk, because they got them in this funk. They got to drag them out, Albert. And it's as simple as that when it comes to the Edmonton Oilers.
Yeah, serious concern. I mean, considering McDavid had 153 points last season. Behind him was his buddy Draisaitl, 128 points. Problems in Edmonton. Okay, let's switch gears to the NFL. Overreaction or reality? The Buffalo Bills beating the Jets 32-6 in Week 11 on Sunday puts them back into a position where they're going to make the playoffs.
Well, when you look at it, I was looking this morning at some different analytics companies that give out playoff percentages. They're saying that the Bills are at, I think, 26% to make the playoffs, which, look, there's a big win against the Jets. Again, it's the Jets and Zach Wilson and all that stuff, but they're 6-5, right? They're about a half game behind Pittsburgh for the behind Pittsburgh and Houston for the final two wild card positions. But Albert, I'm looking at the Steelers' schedule, and I don't know what type of luck Mike Tomlin has, or what he did in a previous life to get the luck that he has right now. One of the best coaches in the NFL for sure. But Albert, they play the Bengals this week with no Joe Burrow. They take on the Cardinals, the Patriots, the Colts, the Bengals again, my Seahawks, and finish off at the Ravens. They could literally only lose two more games for the rest of the season, the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? With that defense, and Kenny Pickett is a horrible starting quarterback. He is horrible, right? Anthony Richardson has more touchdown passes than Kenny Pickett has since October, I think. And Anthony Richardson has been out for the season, right? Tommy DeVito has more multiple touchdown passing games than Kenny Pickett. He's horrible, right? But the Steelers' schedule is so light that I think they just walk into the playoffs. And I think the Bills, they have a tough schedule. They have what they have left. They have this week, they have the Eagles. Sorry, next week they have Sunday they have the Eagles, excuse me. Then their bye week, then the Chiefs, then the Cowboys, then the Chargers, who are a dumpster fire, and the Patriots, and then the Dolphins. Look, it's not going to be easy. So I think the Buffalo Bills are on a collision course to miss the playoffs this year, just because of their schedule and the teams around them that they have to hop over, and their easy schedule they have.
Yeah, I'm with you. They don't make the playoffs. Bills got some serious issues. Okay, I'm going to give you the final word. New segment on this podcast, the final word for today's show. So on Sunday night, LeBron James scored a season-high 37 points, hit the game-winning free throw to lead the Lakers over the Rockets. It was LeBron's fifth 30-point game this season. And listen to this, his 18th game of 30 or more points for LeBron James since he turned 38 years old. Justin, your final word on LeBron James.
Greatness. I mean, can you expect anything else from LeBron James? And the fact that the Lakers still need LeBron James to put up 37, 6, 8, and then also 3 steals, Albert. Don't forget the 3 steals. He's helping on the defensive end too, to beat the Houston Rockets, who are playing a lot better. They're playing a lot better, but it is a shame that LeBron James has to continue to do so much just for the Lakers to stay above 500. I think what Anthony Davis had 27 points, but after that, the next highest was Austin Reeves at 17. Nobody else really did much. So LeBron James continues to do what LeBron James does best, and that's put up numbers, historically great numbers, do what he does best. But Rob Pelinka and the Lakers, they got some problems, and I don't know if they can rely on a midseason trade like they did last year to get them out of it, but also embrace and enjoy what we have with LeBron James right now, because it's not going to last forever. And when he's gone, this game and the sporting landscape of the world is going to miss it greatly.
All right, that's it from us at Homestand Sports. Thanks so much for listening to today's podcast. Don't forget, we'll be dropping episodes throughout the week, so keep your eyes peeled for that. You can find Homestand Sports anywhere you download your podcasts, including Apple, Amazon, and Spotify. Thanks again for listening. I'm Albert Vartanian. This has been Homestand Sports, where stories, not stats, take center stage.